So I posted a picture on my Snapchat story, and I was like, if any guy buys the lingerie in my cart, I will let you see me in them in person. So I filled my cart up. Mind you, I had bought it like as soon as I filled it up. But my cart ended up being like maybe $268 for the lingerie. So I ended up having like, I want to say 13 or 14 guys be like, hey, did anyone buy it yet? Did anyone buy it yet? So I'd be like, nope, still sitting there. So obviously like I took a screenshot of my cart, not bought yet. Because guys want to think they're the only ones doing it. So yeah, like 12 guys ended up cash apping me like the amount for my cart. And then I just sent them all the exact same pictures when it was done. And yeah, so now I have a bunch of cute lingerie, and I ended up making like, what, maybe $1,500 off of nothing.
I wish that I had a time machine and I could go back to like the 1960s and show videos like this to the original feminists who were fighting to end like domestic servitude, to be able to enter the workforce for genuine equality, and then show them this is the sort of thing that's being done in the name of feminism now. This is female empowerment. This is women's liberation. This is sexual equality. I always wonder what the original feminists would think about women and their behavior today. Would they applaud and say, yes, this is wonderful? Or would they be like me and be disgusted? This woman is a sexist criminal stealing from lonely men. I wonder if you took it back a generation further and spoke to like the suffragettes, like the women who wanted to be able to vote, what would they think of women today? I mean, obviously, yes, in those like 100 years that have passed, there's been a lot of good progress that they'd probably applaud, but surely at some point, progress is becoming a problem. That's what I want to talk about in this video. I want to make the argument that progress for progress's sake with regards to social attitudes is not inherently good. It's not always beneficial. Sometimes it can be harmful. This video was inspired by a message I received last week on Hey Hero from a guy who said that he loved my channel, he loved my videos, but that he was nervous watching somebody espouse like conservative values, you know, coming from a traditionalist perspective. When I read that, I was confused because I don't consider myself a traditionalist. Like I wouldn't think of myself as someone who's a conservative. But then I was like, well, am I? And if I am, is that a bad thing? I've always thought of myself as somebody who's very keen on progress, somebody who's very open-minded. And so the thought of being like someone who's scared of progress and is, you know, wanting to conserve, you know, traditions and things like that, that really jars with, I guess, my self-image. But I think it's time for some real honest reflection. So I don't know if you can relate to this, whether you identify more with like progressive values or conservative values and what actual relation they have to dating and the dating market. But that's what I'm going to explore in this video. And as I was writing down my thoughts and talking to the people close to me about this, I realized that this is actually really, really important. And I think that it's essential that all guys actually have clarity inside their own mind on this topic. And so hopefully by watching this video to the end, you'll have clarity inside your own mind about what you believe and why you believe it. But first, a word from our sponsor. I have always loved trees, and the sponsor of today's video, Established Titles, has created a fun and unique way to help preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland. This is my certificate issued to Lord Alexander Grace, bequeathing me 1 square foot of woodlands in a private estate in Eddleston, Scotland, with my own unique plot number. I've been told that the first 200 people who purchase the title pack using my link are going to have their plots effectively next to mine, which means we'll have our own little kingdom. On top of preservation, Established Titles is also working with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to plant a new tree with every order. But in addition to the environmental benefits, Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. So as a landowner in Scotland, you can now officially include the title Lord or Lady on things like credit cards, airplane tickets, dating profiles. People love this product. It's fun, it's quirky, it makes a great last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a massive Black Friday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Alexander, you're going to get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/Alexander. Get your gift now and help support the channel. Okay, back to the video. And the first thing that I want to explain is that from my perspective, men who consider themselves to be socially progressive don't need to be inherently scared of traditional values. I'm talking just in terms of dating and relationships. And for the remainder of this video, when I use terms like progressive and conservative, I don't mean in the political realm. This is not a political channel. I don't do politics. I'm just talking in the more sort of Oxford Dictionary sense of those words, in terms of, are you in favor of progress, changing things in the future, or are you more in favor of preserving that which has already been established, conservative? Now, stick with me here, because in order to really explain what I mean by progressive, I need to just zoom out for a moment and explain how much of a modern luxury progressivism actually is. Science has given us the freedom to be progressive that we never had before, because existence for humanity was always so dangerous. Our survival was always in peril, that the risk of trying new things, doing things in a new way, was just too great. Like, if you're a hunter-gatherer living in the desert and there's been no rain for the year, so none of the berries and shrubs that you'd ordinarily forage from have actually sort of sprung up, you do what you would always do, which is like do a dance and pray to the rain god. Now, is that a tactic that's easy to defend on a rational basis? No, but this is not the time to be trying out these newfangled ideas of agriculture. You've got to stick with what has proven to work in the past. You have to conserve the old ways because too much is at stake. But that doesn't really fit in our modern era, because society has become so abundant technologically that we have this massive safety net. We can try out a bunch of new things, and our economy, our civilization is not going to collapse. For somebody like me who's fascinated in ideas and new ways of doing things, it is a wonderful time to be alive, because everything's up for grabs. It's like, oh, cool. We don't need to worry about survival so much. All right, let's reconsider everything. Maybe all the ways that we've been doing things in the past are wrong, and we can come up with new ideas. Like, that is absolutely just fascinating to me. I'm so grateful that I'm alive in this period of human existence, because it's just so enjoyable to, to question paradigms, to actually look at things and be like, hey, that doesn't work. That's just superstitious. We can get rid of that. Or find out, oh, no, that was actually essential. We've got to hold on to that. Can you see why I sort of hesitated when that guy on Hey Hero called my channel like traditional, like socially conservative? Because it just doesn't fit with my image of myself. Like, in my mind, I'm really high in openness, like the Jordan Peterson Big 5 personality traits. Like, I love exploring new ideas. I tend to associate, perhaps unfairly, social conservatism with like a closed-mindedness, like, oh no, there's a fear about trying new things and considering new possibilities. But if I truly am this open-minded, progressive person, then why do the topics that I cover on this channel always seem to be coming from this more traditional conservative perspective? For me, the short answer is that I'm actually so open-minded that I don't consider progress for progress's sake to actually be virtuous. For me, the ultimate goal is to make humans happy, and so I'll happily borrow from anything, whether it's from ancient traditions or new ideas. So long as it works and makes people happy, I'm adopting that. And when I'm considering what advice to give my audience in terms of what is going to make men and women happiest, lead to the most healthy, functioning relationships, from all of the data that I have seen, the best advice that we can give men and women actually looks pretty close to what they've always been practicing in terms of traditional gender roles. Not to like the women are property to be sold off, for favorable marriages and all of that ridiculous kind of stuff, but in terms of the fundamental biological truth that men are masculine and women are feminine, and you should take that as your starting point in terms of understanding how we can relate to each other. Yeah, I think the traditional perspective has a lot of merit. That's my own story, or I guess, if you're skeptical, you can say my own rationalization for how myself as a progressive person ended up arriving at reasonably socially conservative values. I don't know if my early 20s self would even recognize who I am now in my mid 30s, but I am confident that myself now could explain to my younger self how I arrived at the conclusions that I did, why I have family values, why I think the raising of children is so important, why I think that masculinity and femininity are incredible, beautiful, but different, and that those differences must be respected. I think I could convince my younger self of why I ended up where I am. I think possibly one of the hardest things for my younger version of myself to accept would be that I might one day have an audience of people who listen to my opinions who come from a religious perspective. That would have blown my mind, and in some ways it actually blows my mind a little bit today. As someone who isn't religious, it's fascinating to me how much crossover my ideas have with people who are traditionally religious in terms of gender differences and the importance of family and raising children. It makes me realize and respect the staying power of religions in terms of how much they have remained relevant throughout human history and even in today's society. Like, obviously, as not a religious person, I don't agree with everything, but they must be doing some things right in order to still existing, because just from like a cultural evolution point of view, if they were hugely dysfunctional and there was no merit to them whatsoever as an ideology, as a system of beliefs, they probably would have died out. But religion is continuing to work for people, and so you still find it's a relevant force in today's society. So yeah, the portion of my audience that is religious, that really, really fascinates me because I don't share their beliefs, in terms of metaphysics. Like, I have a different conception of the universe. You watch my channel, you know me, I'm a science guy, evolution, all of that stuff. But it's definitely softened me, and I have a lot of respect for people who are religious, who are able to listen to a heathen like me. I think that's pretty open-minded, and I respect that, because even though, like, I'm the evolution guy and you believe the world was created in 7 days or whatever, if we're able to actually find some common ground and discuss those points on the merits without reverting to scripture, that's impressive. And as much as I love the evolutionary explanations, it probably made me realize that how we got to the end point is actually not necessarily as important in practical terms of actually making men and women happy in their relationships. Like, if you believed God made men this way and women this way, and I believe that it was a long, complex process of evolution and sexual selection that created certain instincts to be stronger than others. So long as we actually both kind of agree, like, well, these are the cards that we've been dealt, this is the current state of things, this is what reality is, then we can still have a very productive dialogue. I think that's cool. That's not something my younger self probably would have believed was possible. So now, speaking to those audience members directly now who have a personality like mine, they consider themselves very open-minded, very progressive, but they're scared about adopting any values that could be labeled as traditional or conservative. I want to tell you that the fear that you have inside your mind is bullshit. Progress for progress's sake is not a virtue. That's a myth. It's nonsense. If you come across a set of values that make sense to you, it doesn't matter what the label is, whether it's progressive or it's traditional. Just because it's something that people in the past have practiced, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're regressing. I still think, in terms of your personal evolution, if it's getting closer to what you truly believe, then you as an individual are making progress. Not progress in terms of more things are changing, but progress in terms of you're getting closer to reality, to truth. That's what's important. That's the ultimate test by which to measure the merits of any system of ideas against. You can't just have constant progress, constant moving forward, because what if you get to a point where you start ripping up and changing things that are actually fundamental to how human beings have always lived? You're tampering with something that is just innate in human beings, and the more you deny it, the more damage you're causing, because from my perspective, that's where we're at. When we see that woman at the beginning of this video, tricking men into buying her underwear, when we see where feminism has led to us, when we see the absolute denial of differences between men and women, and absolutely, denigrating masculinity or smothering femininity, we've gotten to a point where continuing along that line, trying to make progress in that direction, is only harming us. It's time to stop and be like, whoa. We may have gone too far. Let's just take a pause, take a breath, and actually tune in. What's real here? What's fundamentally true about humans? If we keep just tearing things up and changing things for the hell of it, for the sake of progress, we're going to lead ourselves straight to hell. I can't believe that I used a Christian term there, of hell. You guys are getting to me. But just because these are your personal values doesn't mean that you have to be some dictatorial conservative. Like, for me, I absolutely love that we have people in society experimenting with different things. The fact that there are lesbians, there are people who are living in polyamorous triads, the people that are got like 10 wives, and they're trying all these weird different types of relationships. I'm 100% in favor of it. We need to constantly be experimenting in order to gain the data that we need to be able to tell what is actually the best way for human beings to interact with each other. Mostly the reason why I've arrived at quite traditional sounding or conservative values is because my reading on the data of all those crazy different types of experiments that you could try in terms of human relationships is that it's generally not working. People are actually happiest living a somewhat traditional life. But I would never restrict or condemn people for trying something different. We need that data. They're doing something really important. I love people who live on the fringes. I think that they're fascinating. But do you see, I feel like I have a responsibility, because even though at a wider social level, I'm encouraging of all that experimentation, if I actually have an individual man or woman come to me who says, I don't really care about the progress of society or gathering data, I just want to be happy. That's the only thing I care about. Alexander, how should I live my life? How should I conduct my dating life, my relationships? I'm not going to tell him to turn his life into a social experiment. I'm going to give him the advice that I think is genuinely going to make him most happy. And that's what you see on this channel. Guys, be masculine. That's what's going to work. I don't really care that the advice that I'm giving on this channel just sounds like rehashed, advice that people would have given decades ago. To me, that doesn't mean that we're regressing. It just means that we've experimented going a little bit too far, and now we're trying to find that midpoint again, that actually sits on reality. To me, the data is really clear. Human beings are not blank slates, okay? You come born into this world with a reasonably strong set of instincts. You as a man are fundamentally different to a woman, and so trying to enact her role of life or trying to just have no kind of gender expression, no masculinity, no femininity, just sort of a meaningless blob isn't going to work because you're at war with yourself. That's not going to apply to every human being. I get that. Individual exceptions are absolutely welcome, but on the whole, this is the advice that's going to work for most people. Be who you are. Don't be at war with your own instincts. Don't give in to the propaganda. You like beautiful women? Of course you do. It indicates good health, good genes. You don't like promiscuous women? Of course you don't. It indicates paternity uncertainty. You are the reference point that you need to be paying attention to when making decisions about your life, not some ideology. Embracing your identity as a man is going to be so good for your mental health. You're ambitious. You want to be successful. You want to be in good shape. You want to be a provider. You want to be a leader. Of course you do. Ultimately, you need to forget the labels. I know I've been talking about progressivism and conservatism a lot in this video, but really, you just need to embrace a you-ism, like who are you? And then be true to that. Perhaps the answers that you'll come up with might look a little bit traditional, and that might scare you if you think of yourself as a more progressive person. But from where I'm sitting, you're right to reject the constant progress because the data is with you. Pretending like men and women have no differences is a disastrous way to enter into your relationships. If you've been watching my videos, you like my worldview, but you want to understand it better, you want to take your knowledge deeper, then there are 3 ways you can do that. The first option is the most affordable. It just costs $5, and that's my Patreon. And you're going to unlock hundreds of exclusive videos which take this stuff to a much deeper level. The latest video is on the topic of whether or not women are inherently narcissistic. Not the kind of video I could ever release here on YouTube publicly. It's on my Patreon. But if you're chasing some more specific feedback to your dating life or to your relationship, you need to hit me up on Hey Hero. Tell me everything that's going on and I'll create a personalized video for you with my advice. And lastly, I have recently released my paid course, 100 Sides of Women. I take real life stories and then I create this series of video exams designed to test your knowledge and also to educate and inform you. Hundreds of people have signed up. The reviews have been absolutely amazing. There's a video, I've got a link to it in the description box, explaining how it all works, including how you can access one of the video exams for free, absolutely zero cost, so you can test it out for yourself.